Hello, my name is Roman Gingiashvili, and this is highly unusual video, unusual from all others, different from all other videos we have made. And the reason why it's unusual, because what we're covering here, one of the most controversial and most popular opening variations, maybe in the last half a century, Najdorf Sicilian. Najdorf Sicilian is so well explored. There some variations are known up to like 30 moves. And nevertheless, what's amazing is that game collection I have for you is played in the last several months. They were played in a very, very high level. So some only IMs or GMs. And you see there are still some tactical possibilities that were missed by one side or the other right after the opening. The second the opening ends, there is some missed opportunities. And that does not surprise me. That shows how rich is the opening with all kind of tactical resources for both sides. The collection I found is, I knew how rich was the Najdorf Sicilian, but when I looked the games, I've been collecting this for a few months, and it amazed me how many possibilities. I knew there were a lot, but I was amazed myself how much is a lot. And I will present you few of them. So let's look. E4, C5, it's a first game. The interesting point I want to make, first game was played between Michael Brooks, international master, and Julio Becerra, grandmaster. Knight F3, D6, D4, CD, Knight takes D4, Knight F6, Knight C3, A6. In this position, White plays move that was popular maybe 10 years ago, but not anymore, F4. It's a very playable move, and the most popular response to this is E5, which was not played. E6 was played. It is also the option that Black always has, and on Bishop E2, Knight C6, Bishop E3, we get type of Scheveningen variation. Castling, King H1, all regular moves, typical moves of the Sicilian defense. And in this particular game, what's amazing is how quickly Black got in trouble. It's move 11. This position happened, I imagine, is at least several thousand times. And in this position, Black made a move, not very successful, not very good move, Rook C8. Now, you can ask me why Rook C8 is not a good move. The reason why Rook C8 is not a very good move is this. We have typical position for Sicilian, and Rook C8 is a typical move, one of the standard moves. But in this particular case, Black has to untangle the knights and bishops. They are all in backyard. To do something like this, probably. And rook c8 is not the priority now. Maybe queen c7 and rook a to d8, but after rook c8, rook d1, and next move is nearly fatal mistake, knight a5. Now, what can we say here? Knight a5 is taking piece away from the center, allowing obvious e5. e5, a lot of times, black allows and simply goes knight e8, and white doesn't have anything decisive. Correct way to play this position is knight takes, bishop takes, and bishop c6. Perhaps with some playable position. And again, this would have been a lot better to do without rook c8 move, as I already explained. So, rook c8, rook d1, knight a5, and in my opinion, after e5, black is lost. It's a typical Sicilian moves, but typical Sicilian moves, sometimes they get run over. You can get run over by the other side that will make typical Sicilian breakthroughs. And this is the case. Game was played just a couple of months ago, and it's totally lost for black after that. Knight e8, f5. Now, black is absolutely lost here. They played bishop h4, provoking g3. But let's see what are the other options to defend this position. Bishop h4, not very successful move, but knight c4. Let's see what would have happened there. F takes c, f takes c. Rook takes f8. Bishop takes f8. Bishop takes c4. Rook takes c4. And now queen f2. Rook f1 is the threat. And after queen e7, rook f1, de, knight f3. Those are the best moves made by black with a very, very bad position that they have. They cannot protect the e-pawn. Knight e5 is coming. Something like this, knight e5. And when rook moves anywhere, rook cannot move to some square like b4 because of bishop c5 will immediate devastation. On queen takes c5, queen f7 check followed by checkmate. So rook has to retreat to c-file, and it has to go to c7. And again, it cannot go to c8 because knight takes d7 and bishop on f8 is falling. So if in an only move rook c7, there may be bishop g5, and it's a perfect time for black to resign here. However, this did not happen. So what is the other move for black to play after f5, if not knight c4? There are no good moves. So bishop h4, g3, bishop g5, and here white could have delivered the final blow. White could have won simply with fe, and on fe Rook takes f8, Queen f2 check, and Rook f1. This game is over. There are two different checks on f7 and f8, completely devastate Black's position, and they suffer huge losses. And after fe, there is no other continue. So I'm trying to show how immediately after the opening, how one inaccurate move, how can lead to complete destruction. And this is typical for Najdorf Sicilian. So in this position after fe, if Black plays bishop takes e3, then e takes d. This is also completely over after knight f5, attacking the bishop, and on bishop a7, knight d5, and there is a threat of knight e7 check, winning rook, and knight on a5 is hanging. This is over as well. So after g3, bishop g5, white played bishop g5, and you can't really criticize white for making this move because this is also winning continuations. F takes e, f takes e, rook takes f8, king takes f8, and correct move here was simply taking pawn on d6, and Black cannot retake. And that would have won with extra pawn, a very strong pawn, terrible knight on a5, would have been completely winning. Black cannot retake on d6 because of knight f3 attacking queen and the knight, and on queen c5, queen d2, rook c6 has to be played. And let me tell you something. When you get to some position like this, normally you don't continue analyzing. Just take a look at Black's pieces. This is absolutely terrible picture that you would say some beginner played with Black. In this case, Grandmaster played it, but they were forced to this position after a couple of mistakes. Knight and bishop on d file are absolutely horrible. The knight on a5 is completely out of play, and Black has no prospects, and White has very comfortable selection of winning continuations. This, or maybe knight d4, and then rook f1 and queen f4. Well, position is easily won for White. So this did not happen. So after king takes f8, White played queen f2 check. But position is so bad for Black that White has a wide variety of winning continuations. King g8, rook f1, queen e7, bishop g4, now threatening bishop takes e6, and because of f8 square being on guard, h5, and here nice blow too. When you have pieces this active for White, there is a multiple tactical shots should be expected. Knight d5, knight must be taken, bishop takes d7, rook c7 was played. Well, what for Black to do? It's interesting, on queen takes d7, e6 ends the game immediately, because after queen e7, queen f7 check. Now queen has to take. White simply takes on f7 and makes a new queen. by f8. King f8 doesn't help because of knight e6 check, followed by f8. So after bishop takes d7, rook c7 was played, and bishop e6 check, king h7, queen e2. Well, we don't need to continue this. It's on queen g5 was played, bishop f5, and on king g8, knight e6. If you had here 5 different people could suggest moves for white, and they suggested all different moves, they all 5 could have been right. So position is so bad for black. So that's the end of this game. Amazing blow in such an early stage of the game. Just 2 invisible mistakes and the typical Sicilian type of moves. That's why it's dangerous to make moves typical for Sicilian defense in Najdorf in any position. You have to be always on a high alert for tactical refutation. This next game played between 2 very strong grandmasters is particularly interesting. It's very, very interesting, not so much from what happened in a game as what could have happened. Some absolute total explosions in seemingly quiet situations. And this is the Najdorf Sicilian, very typical for it. What could have happened? That's why some careful analysis before the game could give you a win in the game without really putting big effort. In this game, white was Gashimov. It's one of the top players on a FIDE rating list against Polish Grandmaster Kempinski. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, cd, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop g5. Here is the sharpest variation of the Najdorf Sicilian. After bishop g5, e6, f4, bishop e7, queen f3, h6, bishop h4. This was all played also thousands of times already. And castling long, knight b2, d7, bishop e2. And normal move in this position is b5. e5 will be met by bishop b7. Black has castled in this position after, instead of going b5, they castled. And after some hesitation, white played bishop g3, obviously intending e5. It's not a bad move, but let's look at g4. This move clearly puts the game in a fast lane. g5 is coming, and there will be very, very sharp and dangerous attack for white. Why did white didn't play? Why the white didn't play? Well, let's look at the variation. I analyzed this position together with Rivka and I believed 100% that g4 is the correct move. Ripka didn't want to play g4, but when we started analyzing, I was getting one after the other absolutely devastating attacks for white. Let's see what would have happened. g4, b5. And notice this is 12th move of the opening that is very well explored for last 50 years at least. And each of these players played dozens of times. Nevertheless, g4 wasn't played. This is the best known and best explored opening. Well, let's see what happens. g5, hg, and we take fg, knight e5, queen g3. Obviously, that's why white didn't play it. And they thought that their attack is not fast enough. But in this position, after knight f5, that's the move. This is the type of sacrifice I like, sacrifice of piece, where you don't have as much winning continuation and you don't get material back, but you have ongoing, a long-term compensation. And actually this knight f5 kind of move, you may say this is not the first time was played, this type of move in Sicilian, but that's the same thing I made kind of an innovation in a Paulson variation. Well, anyway, let's look at what would have happened after knight f5. After knight f5, black has no choice but to take on f5, then knight d5, queen d8, bishop must be protected, and e takes f. White is simply a piece down, but f6 is coming, very strong concentration of the pieces on the king side, and also there may be rook d to f1 and rook h to g1. So every white's piece is attacking black's position. And suppose rook e8, f6, of course pawn cannot be taken, and after bishop f8, fg, bishop takes g7, and g6. I think white's position is absolutely winning. Well, something like f6 can be met with rook h to f1, or there is a possibility of going to h3 with the queen at some point, and just trying to mate on h7. White has absolutely crushing position. This was not played. Now let's see where could black divert from it. g4. Is there any other move besides b5? There isn't. Because g5 will come no matter what, and some typical counterplays in its center are out of question. g5 is coming next. The only thing is to quickly develop these pieces, trying for counterplay. hg. Bishop takes g5 obviously is not good because of b4 attacking the knight and coming bishop b7 attacking e4 pawn. Black will get quickly very desirable counterplay. But after f takes g, now knight e5 and knight d7 is a typical maneuver, and it has to be played. After queen g3, there is no other good move but knight d7, and after knight f5, black's fate is always in white's hand. So take knight d5, every move is forced. f6 is threatening, and after rook e8 f6, we simply take on g7, go g6, and if queen moves, white is a piece down, but black is undeveloped, and every file on king's side is open, and it's just a couple of moves before the mate. Simple rook g1 will do it, and if king took, there are multiple ways to end the game as well. So it's interesting how this was not missed by both opponents. What I'm amazed with, it's not that they missed g4 move. No. g4 is the kind of move that 9 out of 10 top players in the world would play it over the board. I mean, when I say miss, they may play g4, but they miss all the calculation we just did. What is amazing me is how can g4 move with all the variations and continuations can be missed in analysis before the game, in opening analysis. I remember there was no issue of chess publication many years ago was coming out without analyzing this variation of Sicilian, bishop g5. Even when Fischer was just maybe like 12, 13 years old, he was playing this for white and for black. So what we're talking about, 50, 60 years ago? Yeah, that's how old all this variation is. And not one player ever evaluated the consequences of g4 move for instant solution. Well, the only explanation I find is that normal move is b5, and hardly anyone was playing castling. But when you prepare this variation for white, you have to anticipate castling, even though it's unlikely move, unlikely because h6 doesn't go well with castling, because after h6 move for black, g4 and g5 will open position quick. But it still had to be considered. In any case, in this position, after castling, bishop g3 was played. After some hesitation, white played bishop g3, and now knight h7. Black is trying to somehow to counter the e5 move. Knight h7, bishop d3, b5, and now white goes e5. White still has overwhelming position. And here, black made a bad move. I would say losing move. And it's interesting that game was won by black. Bishop b7 is bad move, and obviously we're going to see why. But let's see what was okay move. D takes c. This was the right move. Sacrificing the rook. Now e takes d. The only way to play for queen e4 is not good because of knight f6. Or maybe even the other knight on f6. And black has some compensation. Well, actually, bishop takes h7, then king takes, queen e4 check, f5, queen takes d4, knight b6. Well, this position, I would say black has certain compensation. Bishop on g3 is terrible. They have bishop pair, bishop comes to f6, knight goes to c4, black has compensation. And after queen e5, well, this position is far from being clear. And on bishop f2, simply knight c4. I think black has very nice compensation for exchange. They have a pawn. Pawn on e5 is weak. On g2, pawn is weak. Rook d7 doesn't accomplish anything because black has bishop g5 check. Black is clearly having some compensation. But bishop b7 was played almost instantly because this is the typical move. In Najdorf Sicilian, very often when white goes e5 and attacks rook, it's countered by bishop b7. Now, bishop takes h7, king takes, queen d3 check, every move is forced, king g8, knight takes e6, fe, pawn takes d6. This bishop takes, queen takes, rook takes, knight c5. White has an extra pawn, but it's not easy to win because there is a weakness on g2 and potential of black having opposite color bishops. And this position is very, very playable for black, although white has an advantage. So, rook e1, that's a wrong move, because after rook e1, b4 was played, black got counterplay, and something we don't have to do, we don't have to go to the end of the game. Eventually, black won. But what would have been the correct continuation here? The correct continuation would have been rook to g1. As passive as it seems, white has to unwind slowly, maintaining extra pawn. And after b4, knight to d1. And if a5, then simply rook d4. They try to regroup. Rook a c8, now threatening b3, and b3. And eventually, white is going to have an extra pawn, something like rook d8. We will take on d8. We go knight e3, freeing the rook because pawn on g2 is protected. And the white will have reasonable winning chances. But again, it was misplayed. I understand if Grandmaster doesn't want to make move passive like rook g1 and played rook e1 instead. But that gave black good counterplay after b4, knight e2, rook a c8. And now g2 pawn is hanging, and rook g1 was played now, knight e4, bishop e4, and white got in trouble and eventually lost. But this part is already beyond of our interest, because our interest was typical Najdorf Sicilian crashes, and how in seemingly quiet and very well-known position, there may be complete devastation. And when I analyzed, I said, okay, knowing this is coming to me after I finished analyzing, knowing what's coming, if I had black, and if for some reason I knew all the consequences of this sharp variation, what would I do? What would I do here for black? And this question still remains. I don't know. I think G4 is a winning move. So, castling must be the losing move. And again, once more, I will go with the winning variation. H takes G, F takes G. Knight E5. This is standard for Najdorf Sicilian. And here Knight F5. With absolute devastation. I think it's highly interesting and instructive variation we just went through. This next game is extremely instructive. It shows how endless are the tactical possibilities, offensive and defensive, are in Najdorf Sicilian. That's what makes it the most competitive opening variation in the history of chess. So let's look at the game played by two grandmasters just less than a couple of months ago. Game was played in Moscow in Airfloat Open and played between two grandmasters, Greek grandmaster Katronius versus Chinese grandmaster Xiu, spelled Xiu. This is the sharpest variation, bishop g5, knight bd7, f4, e5, knight f5. You can tell that here it's already becomes very, very sharp continuation. After queen b6, protecting d6 pawn, attacking b2 pawn, and preparing possible g6. Queen f3. That hangs almost all queen side. But of course that's not a blunder. If grandmaster sacrifice pawn or two, you have to be very careful. Although it's not always correct to do to sacrifice, but in this case it became absolutely amazing tactically and was sea of missed opportunities. Rook b1, queen takes c2, and bishop c4. Now, what can we say about this position? White's development is overwhelming. Black's king is stuck in the center. Black is behind the development. And to get totally crushing positions, all white has to do is to castle. But this is a long way away. It's one move away. At the same time, it's very long. Black is forced to play knight takes c4. That's what happened, and that's the only expected move. White castled, and black played queen takes c3. It's a big mistake. Big mistake because the correct continuation was knight takes c3. An attacking knight on f5. Of course, white anticipated this move, and they had something in mind. Here are two grandmasters, so they don't miss simple continuations. Of course, white had in mind the only move they could have had in mind in this position, which is knight d4, and it looks very powerful. Attacking the queen, and knight cannot be taken because then rook e1 check. King has no moves, forcing knight e5, and after pawn takes e5, f7 is very weak, f7 pawn, and white has probably overwhelming advantage, probably winning. Nevertheless, black should have taken it with a knight, and on knight d4, what they missed is knight e2 check. Here knight goes on e2, where it can be taken three different ways, and still it's a big advantage for black. Many tactical shots inspire and been answered by counter tactics. That's what should have been done in this game. Knight e2, white has to take the knight on e2 with the bishop. The reason why is this. Taking with the knight, it's simply black is going to take the bishop, protect the f7 square just in case, and it's very hard to find any compensation for severe material loss for white. And you definitely don't want to exchange queens when you are several pawns down, which leaves white with the only move bishop takes e2, and now taking on d4, again not good because of bishop d3 attacking queen and followed by rook e1 check can be absolutely crushing for white. So the move that was probably missed by both players would have been queen c5, and there is no sufficient compensation because after f takes e, queen takes d4, check. Now bishop e3 must be played because moving the king will get white to absolutely lost position. They are down a piece and couple of pawns without any visible compensation. So bishop e3 has to be played. Now queen is hanging and f7 pawn is hanging, but then after queen takes e5, queen f7 and king d8, white doesn't have decisive continuation and black has a clear advantage. Well, probably winning advantage. Actually, obviously this was analyzed by me with super powerful engines, and I did it very carefully, allowing quite of an amount of time. So, which means that there is no mistake in this variation. There was clearly missed by black in this position. They missed what? Black and white. What they missed is the queen c5 move in preliminary calculations, and black has decisive advantage. But again, this wasn't played, and what black did in this position is, after castling, they played queen takes c3. Okay, this is still okay for black. Queen takes e4, but now white is down only 2 pawns. They have all their pieces in place. Knight c5. And the correct move would have been here, queen d5. I love this game to analyze, to see how many blows white delivered and almost all of them were wrong. Okay, queen d5 wasn't played. What was played was bishop takes f7, which was absolutely wrong. Now let's see what would have happened with queen d5. Bishop is f7 is hanging, bishop e6 is a must move, and a bishop e6. Now knight takes d6. Now c5, knight is hanging, so knight has to be taken. Queen takes d6. Now threatening mate on e7, so queen d4 is forced, it's a check. Queen takes d4. Pawn takes d4. Bishop takes e6. And f takes e. Black is still better. They have extra 2 pawns. White has a slight compensation by playing rook c1. Black is better. But this was an absolute necessity because bishop takes f7 is another losing move. So, by not playing in this position after white castle, by not playing knight takes c3, and by playing queen takes c3, black missed an easy win. Instead, after queen takes c4 and knight c5, they could have, if white played correctly, they could have ended up with just an advantage. Not a win, but just an advantage. But white play overly optimistic. And this is another move that is a losing move. King takes f7, queen d5 check, and here move king e8 would have won easily. After king e8, white is simply lost. If f takes e, then knight e6. Now, black wants to play queen takes e5. They want to play queen c5 check, exchanging queens. And white has no option but playing knight takes d6, bishop takes d6, ed, or queen takes d6, followed by queen c5. Well, the another chance to play for white, instead of knight takes d6, is that e takes d will be met by queen c5 check, and so very hard to find a good move with exception of bishop e3. But then again, black has an amazing defense. Well, now, if pawn takes on e5, white still has maybe sufficient compensation. But correct move is queen c6, offering exchange, and after queen a5, simply d5. White is a piece down. Is this sufficient compensation? No, it's not. But that would have been the best try for white. However, instead of going king e8, black finally makes costly mistake. Knight takes c3 wasn't played, and queen takes c3. That was a mistake that missed a win and gave advantage to black instead. But this move is the decisive mistake, and now finally black is totally lost. After rook takes b7, and everything is forced. Knight takes b7 would lose after amazing knight h6 check. You see, king cannot be moved because anywhere king moves, white takes the bishop on e6 with the check, and if black takes the knight, then pawn takes pawn with the check, which leads to inevitable destruction. There is a mate several ways. So that would have lost after rook takes b7. So black played king g8, but that loses as well. Rook takes g7, bishop takes g7, knight e7, and after king f7, finally white opens the f file with a check, which should be totally deadly. And the rook takes f6, and the game is practically over. King takes e7, queen takes d6, leading to a forced mate. Now, this game is instructive in a way that it shows that if you take like 100 years from now, I think Najdorf Sicilian will be far from being totally explored, and the tactical possibilities are endless. They're going to be absolutely endless, as endless are moves in chess. Moves in chess and variety of moves, variety of positions are endless. So will be the tactical possibilities in Najdorf Sicilian. And that's why what is going to be very helpful for you is to spend considerable amount of time, if you are interested in Najdorf Sicilian for one side or the other, to have powerful engine on your side and try to analyze one position or the other where it says, where you see it becomes a little tactic. Use the engine, almost in every variation. That's in my opinion, that's a good news and bad news. Every evaluation has continuation and has some doubtful evaluations, but on the other hand, very, very valuable. Every given evaluation and variation has a lot more to analyze, and that's how this game came out. And what seems like total blowout for white was whole bag of missed opportunities and big mistakes. I found this game very, very instructive. This next game played in September of 2010, and the game was played between two grandmasters. And I find this game specifically very, very interesting because you will see unusual positional sacrifice by white in the early stage of the game, and I was very much impressed by the strength of this sacrifice. Game, an absolutely new idea. Game was played between Gatakamsky, American Gatakamsky, and second best Bulgarian player after Topolov, Cheparinov, Ivan Cheparinov. Game was e4, c5, was played in Olympiad, knight f3, d6, d4, cd, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6. Bishop e3 variation it is. e5, knight f3, queen c7, position that was played many times before, a4, h6. h6 is designed to stop bishop g5, and maybe knight g5 to stop after black plays bishop e6. So it's a useful move. Bishop e2, bishop e6. You see now no more knight g5. Castle on for white. Bishop e7. Very quiet continuation. a5. And normally black plays knight d7 always. And this is very well known position. And in the game, black played very new idea, queen c6, attacking the e4 pawn, and knight d5 is not possible. So if knight d2, then it's very difficult to bring this knight into the game in some reasonable way because of e4 pawn weakness. So that's what definitely black was expecting. But knight e1 move I find very, very interesting. That simply gives up a pawn, knight takes e4, queen takes e4. And if you see now, white's pieces are not that much better placed than black. But white gave a central pawn. Why? Here is why. It's based on some concrete calculation. Bishop f3, queen b4 must be played, and now unexpected move c4. Now we see what the idea is. After c4, bishop takes c4 will be met by rook a4, and if queen b5, there is very powerful refutation, and white is going to end up with an extra piece because rook is trapped and black cannot get a piece for the rook. So that's not good. So what's to do after c4? After long hesitation, black played knight d7, which was incorrect. The correct was knight c6. But when you placed this position, this pawn sacrifice, and somebody played c4, is such a counterintuitive move. It hangs the c pawn two different ways. b2 is also hanging, and it's not clear what is the purpose of this move. The purpose is very simple: to play rook a4. For example, if black castles, there is a rook a4 and knight d3, the possibility of trapping the queen or winning the rook on a8. So black has to make some decision here, important, and they made the wrong one, knight d7. What would have happened if black played knight c6, which was correct? Then rook a4, you will see some most interesting possibilities. Queen takes b2, knight d3, and on queen c3, queen b1, attacking b7 and preparing, trapping black's queen with rook c1. Now, after queen b1, knight d4, that is the only move. And now, rook c1 obviously is not very good because queen b3 may be played, but not knight takes f3 because queen is still trapped. So after knight d4, bishop takes d4, Queen takes d4. Bishop takes b7. Black cannot play rook b8 because of bishop c6 check and winning the rook on b8. And queen a7 is very strong move. Bishop takes a8, queen takes a8. And this position is approximately equal. White has some material advantage. They have an exchange for a pawn. Black has bishop and a pawn for a rook. But two powerful bishops, and after castling, potential of f5. Perhaps white can play c5, but I would say, and so is my helper, Powerful Engines, they say that position is balanced, maybe equal, but still razor sharp. So that's what should have been done. But let's see what happened after c4, knight d7. That was the wrong way to play. Now white plays b3 and rook a4 is coming. Rook b8, knight d3, and after queen c3, white wins a black queen with a move of knight f4. That's another super powerful tactical shot that makes this game so amazing. White is threatening just to simply maybe play knight d5 or knight takes e6, and after knight f4, black takes the knight, and with bishop d4, white traps the queen. Queen b4, rook a4, queen takes a4, b takes a, castling, and rook e1. Black has rook and the knight for white's queen, but white is clearly better, and it's very difficult for black to save this game. Rook e1, however, was the wrong move, because after rook e1, knight e5, bishop takes e5, de, and rook takes e5. Now, after bishop f6, black has sufficient compensation, sufficient for a draw, and because rooks become very active and bishops are very active. Rook e1 move was the first mistake that white made in this game, and the necessary move was bishop g4 to deprive black the possibility of playing with two bishops, and that kind of puts big dent in their defense. What white wants to do to go rook e1 now, because after rook e1, knight e5, bishop g4 is not possible any longer, and after bishop g4, knight e5 is not possible any longer, because that simply gives terrible position to black. After bishop takes e5, not to mention c5 move. After bishop takes e5, de, and queen e2, all black's pawns are very weak. Well, instead of bishop g4, rook e1 was played, and after knight e5, bishop takes e5, de, rook takes e5, bishop f6, and on rook e4, rook b to d8, and queen c1, then bishop d7, and on c5, bishop c6. This game should have ended in a draw. Rook b4 was played. Black played poorly, and ended up losing the game. White still has an advantage, of course, but black lost the game. We are beyond the point of interest for us. So we already made statement about opening results, opening calculations, and opening complications. The conclusion is extremely interesting pawn sacrifice by white, very inspirational and very innovative new idea with a great play that resulted to getting them a big advantage. Missed opportunity for black, and again shows that you can't, I don't think any visible future, you can completely explore tactical possibilities in Najdorf Sicilian. But why do we still encourage you to play? Because while you're playing, for those who doesn't want to have dull positions where skill means less and get very interesting tactical possibilities and very sharp game, and they rely on their skills, that's for you guys. That's why you should play Najdorf, and that's why you should allow your opponent to play Najdorf. The possibilities are endless, and again, you always have a chance to be little more prepared than your opponent when you look at possibilities in a very early stage before the game. You take famous games and try to get new ideas in there. Either you try to let your computer engine to find new ideas, or you feed your engine new ideas. Either way, it's very, very beneficial. Here is the game that I find absolutely unique, but at the same time typical. It's a wake-up call for those who follows theory, especially theory from like 10, 20 years ago in Najdorf Sicilian. The position that is commonly known as a very playable, and that happened for last 40 years, that's how long, at least how long Najdorf been popular. I can't even guess how many times it happened. And it was, mixed results. Position that is well known is absolutely lost for black. And possibilities, tactical possibilities, and the way white could have converted it to win is truly amazing. But on the other hand, you see how early in the game it could have happened. Actually, the game was lost by white. But see what could have happened. And in the end of the game, I will explain it to you how you should find resources like this. Now first, let's make few moves. Knight f3, d6, d4, cd, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop g5 variation. I already mentioned that this is the sharpest variation. e6, f4, bishop e7. The other two possible moves are queen c7 and knight d7. But bishop e7 was also played. Queen f3, h6, bishop h4, queen c7, castle, knight bd7. How many times this position happened? Hundreds, thousands, probably thousands of times. Bishop e2 and rook b8. Well, intending, of course, b5, b4. After rook b8, queen g3 has happened. And here, believe it or not, as dangerous as it is to castle for black, this is the only option they have. Their position is very dangerous, and white has great potentials here. And in Najdorf, in this type of positions, normally black does not castle kingside, but here it was necessity. But of course, when black played rook b8, they meant to meet queen g3 with rook g8. Well, and rook g8 was played. Now rook h to f1, and black has already big problems. The only move black can play here is g5, which is not satisfactory. Well, because they had to play it, because you will see the alternative they had. F takes g, knight e5, knight f3, and after knight f to d7, those are the best moves. Queen h3, and white has clear advantage after hg, bishop g3, and queen h7. It's very difficult for black to organize some real counterplay, and white has all pieces placed perfectly. And then rook b8, it doesn't sound a logical move unless you do what black did in this game. Game, by the way, was played between two grandmasters. Andreasen is white and Gashimov is black. Well, obviously on rook h1, h to f1, b5 was played. That's the logical continuation. And amazingly, that's the position I'm 100% sure that was analyzed by Gashimov, and he was happy with this position. However, this is lost position for black, and white can win by force. There is a force win for white in this position. Bishop takes f6. It's hard to imagine that move like this can win by force, but it does. And here is why. There are two options, of course. Knight takes f6 and bishop takes f6. Well, first let's see knight takes f6. This didn't happen in the game, but first let's see what would have happened if knight took on f6. Well, if knight takes on f6, e5. This is a winning continuation. Let's see why. After e5, suppose d takes e, f takes e. And black's position is absolutely resignable. Well, hard to imagine, but it is. Knight could go to d7, d5, and h7. They all lose, and almost right away. On knight d7, there is a completely blowout shot, knight d5. Knight d5 is attacking the queen, and if black takes, e6 will force their instant resignation. After e6, there is no way black can resist, because queen takes g3 leads to immediate mate. Wherever king goes, there is knight e6 checkmate. And otherwise, queen is hanging, and e takes f is threatening. There is no move at all. On knight e5, e takes f, wins big material. So there is no knight d7. Well, what about knight h7? There is no difference. Knight d5. And knight d5 goes throughout whole variation. E takes d, e6. Again the same. This time, black does not get mated, but this position is equivalent to being mated, because chances of survival are the same as after death. So this is not good. So after e5, there is no response. So that means that taking with the knight is not an option. But if taking with the knight is not an option, then let's see what happens if black takes with the bishop. Believe it or not, f5 is a typical move in this position. Oh, we know that, but when light squares, and normally it's a good move. Here is very different. This is a winning move, completely winning move, f5. And here is why. What to do on f5? Suppose knight e5. There is also another option, bishop takes d4. But we're gonna look at that. On knight e5, we go fe. Now black must play bishop g5 check, because any taking on e6 will be rook takes f6, simple win. So after fe, bishop g5 check, king moves, and whatever black does, bishop takes e6, for example, knight takes, pawn takes, and h4, it's absolutely devastating. It's terrible position. Bishop e7 must be played. Again, you cannot go to f6 because rook takes f6. So this is the best, absolute best black can do. Bishop h5 check. King cannot move because queen takes e5, forcing g6, and now knight e2. Black's position is lost. They can resist a little, but not too much. King cannot move for same. Queen takes e5. Knight comes to d4 or f4, attacking g6 and e6, and this is completely lost position for black. So after f5, there is only one thing left for black to try, is bishop takes d4. But this too fails. After f takes e, well, now you see e takes f is a threat. So black must retake. Bishop h5 check. King d8. And rook takes d4. I don't, same is no knight e5 because queen simply takes again. And I don't think there is a need to evaluate this position. Threat is rook takes d6, bishop f7 attacking e6, rook f to d1, and black is completely destroyed in this position. Now, so what can we conclude? Here is the position where black played b5. I don't imagine anyone could make in this position any human, normal human being. I'm talking about super powerful computer that helped me to find this continuation, but normal, very strong player. I don't imagine anyone making any other move than b5, unless they choose g5, that also gives very big advantage to white. So what is this position? Is this position lost? Very close to it. Maybe you can scramble a little more stubbornly for black, but position is, well, let me give you in terms of numbers. If normal advantage allowed for white in a playable opening is a 0.22, here white has more than 1.22. That means 6 times of an advantage they should have in a well-played opening for both sides. So position is very well known and is absolutely lost. That shows you how important to have proper preparation and your own analysis. Go, if you are Najdorf player, you have to spend considerable amount of time outside of modern theory. Don't just blindly follow top players' games. Do research yourself with the help of an engine, of course. It's a lot easier. Well, actually, this is probably the only way to do it. So, and in this position, well, bishop takes f6 would have won the game. White played rook f1, b5, and now f5, e5, and knight e6. The correct move here would have been queen b7. In the game, black played queen b6. And this is a mistake. That's another invisible mistake. Why this queen b6 is bad and why queen b7 would have been better. Here is why. Now knight d5 was played. White didn't take advantage of the mistake of queen b6. The correct move was knight takes g7, and after king f8, now knight e6 check, and on fe, simply playing queen f3. Now this position is also very dangerous for black. After queen f3, ef, fe is threatening, it's a very serious threat. Ef, queen takes f5, king e8, knight d5. You see the queen is hit on b6. Taking on d5 loses after queen f7 check, and taking the rook with a check. And after knight d5, knight takes d5, loses, but there is no better option, because if queen moves anywhere, then knight takes bishop, followed by bishop takes f6 with absolute crush. So that's why queen should have gone to b7 in this position after knight e6. Well, that shows you one thing. Although this was missed opportunity for white, white still has very strong position after knight e6, but it's far from winning. Queen b6, knight d5 was played, which is a mistake. As we just pointed, knight takes g7. That's another opportunity missed. They are all tactical solutions. So knight d5 was played. Knight takes d5. E takes d. Knight f6. King b1. white simply sacrifices the piece for some positional compensation. Bishop b7, bishop f3, rook c8. Well, here, whatever happened after that, there was series of mistakes on both sides, and game ended up winning for black. But this is beyond our point of interest, because all that could have been very important we left behind the scene, because that didn't happen in a game. And again, that could have been complete crush for black. And again, position is, I saw maybe like tens of thousands of Najdorf games, and I was absolutely surprised and shocked that move like bishop takes f6 here, followed by e5 in case of knight f6, and followed by f5 in case of bishop f6, they would win the game for white. But facts speak a lot better. Black is getting crushed, and there is no way for them to survive. Very, very exciting continuation. Just to add one little thing here, after f5, there is no bishop e5, because f takes e is totally devastating. Now, if pawn takes that queen g6 check, totally kills, and if black decides to take the queen, then we want to take the rook and make a new queen. And in case of king f8, black loses everything. So on king e7, we can take a queen here on c7, we can take a rook and make queen. In both cases, black's position is resignable. Actually, they are getting even mated here. So this is truly amazing option that white missed. And interestingly enough, it was never mentioned by commentators. It was never mentioned in theoretical article. So it was completely missed on both sides, and it was absolutely devastating blow after bishop takes f6. Game was won by black, I reminding you, after series of missed opportunities by white. That's why possibilities are endless in Najdorf. So I promised you in the beginning of this game to tell you, I promised to tell you how you should search for options like this. When you see this position, for example, well-known position, you just keep going. No, you shouldn't keep going. You should put your powerful engine to work here and get some ideas. Either give some ideas to your engines. You think this is good move, maybe this is good move, whatever your idea will be. Or let this engine come up with tactical solutions by itself and allow quite a bit of time, and I am sure you're going to get superior opening preparation. It works almost in every opening, and in the Najdorf Sicilian super sharp opening, it will work 3-4 times as good as in any other opening. That's why you should put your analytical mind, and you should contest every evaluation and every move that was made by either side. So to conclude this video, I want to tell you this. It's extremely helpful for you to explore these possibilities in Najdorf, whether you are a Najdorf player or whether you allow this for white for them to play Najdorf against you. Either way, it's very, very helpful. The reasons are not because you will know this particular position, because this will develop your sense for initiative, will develop your tactical side, and you will see that there is no position you will take for granted. Here is position more than half a century old, and you will see how beginning move 13 that could have been complete blowout. And move 13 in Najdorf in this variation is equivalent in other openings move 2 or 3, because these variations are so well known they go up to 30 moves. So there is no need to go to 30 moves deep when there is a big, big hole on move 13. So that's why Najdorf, studying these positions of Najdorf, is extremely helpful tool for you to learn tactics, learn initiative, and develop some additional positional and tactical senses. So thank you very much, and I hope you had fun.